Welcome all. Thank you so much for joining us. During these interesting times, we would like to share some great discussions that we are having with thought leaders and professionals, where we talk about the realities of remote and virtual work in a growing open talent market. We do deep dives into important topics, tackling some of the real challenges and asking some of the very hard questions. Hi, I'm Emma, and I'm the CEO of One Circle HR, the coolest freelance platform for HR consultants. We are cheerleaders of virtual remote work, and with every discussion, we hope we can make the journey for some of you towards virtual work more enjoyable. We know there is great content out there. We want ours to be easy to digest and implement with depth of expertise, but also it needs to be fun. Today, joining me is Karen Weeks, SVP of People at Order Group based in New York. Order Group is an all-in-one platform designed to build and scale recurring revenue for your business, powered by an AI engine and clients like L'Oreal, GNC, Livewell, and Pepsi. Pretty interesting offering, huh, Karen? Karen is driven to help companies build and scale their culture to meet their business goals and to help people find their career passions. She was named as one of the 2020 notable women in talent by Crain's New York Business. Karen is also a career coach, speaker, and a published author. Her book, Setting the Stage, a guide to preparing for any feedback conversation. Even tough ones, Karen, yeah?
Yes, definitely.
So, hi, Karen. Welcome and great to have you join us in our One Circle Yellow Room discussion. And I'm going to dive straight into my questions to you.
Great.
Why HR for startups is underrated and yet so critical?
Yes, thank you so much for having me, by the way. I'm very passionate about this topic, so I'm so glad we have a chance to talk about it. I think one thing is that as HR has sort of evolved over the years, hopefully people see it more as a partner in how to build the right culture for that organization, how to hire the right people at the right time, how to think about communication, decision-making. It's not just policies and benefits and some of the more traditional pieces. And so I think especially as companies in earlier stages are thinking about what kind of company do they want to be, their culture should be a part of that. And recognizing what it's right for that stage. You know, you may not have these huge training programs, you may not have all the perks in the world, but it doesn't mean that you aren't starting to set your DNA and thinking about your values, thinking about the kinds of people you want to hire, not from a profile standpoint, but from a, are they going to be able to go on this journey with us? And I think that's really important from day one, just recognizing the right scale and the right level for how you're going to build that, because it's going to be the foundation as you grow your company.
Yeah, that's true. A lot of startups just think of HR as maybe only the required policies and procedures in terms from a compliance perspective.
Yes.
But then they miss all of the other elements that you spoke about. But why is it as important to build a company culture as you are building your business?
I think it really helps. First of all, it can help with the competitive market of bringing people to your company. So I would imagine hiring is going to be really important to companies as they're growing. And so having a strong culture will be able to say, this is what we stand for as an organization. So at Order Group, for example, authenticity, collaboration, solution-oriented people, that's the kind of culture that we've driven and created. And so we want to make sure that we are bringing people that are part of that. And that's really exciting for folks. They like hearing that we're really collaborative. They like hearing that it's not about who came up with the answer. It's about coming up with the right answer. And that's a work environment that a lot of people want to be in. And so that's the selling point for us as we're talking to candidates. And as they're considering a lot of different organizations, that's what's making Order Group, for example, stand out. So I think knowing what you are going to be from a culture standpoint helps you hire better people and makes you more attractive in the market. And then it also helps them retain them as you go through different changes, different things that are happening in the environment. I mean, we're all experiencing a lot of change in 2020. And if you know who you are as an organization from a culture standpoint, you're able to lean in on that and use that as a foundation when you have to have either difficult conversations or just help your team through a lot of change.
Yeah, that's true. And startups usually they struggle to survive beyond the 3 to 4 year period.
Yes.
And a lot of studies show that most of them do fail because of almost the same reasons. And one of them is they run out of cash flow.
Mm-hmm.
The other one is maybe their product or service is not fit to the market, and it's not what the cost is not built for the customers. So built not with the customers in mind. But one of the important reasons as well that plays a very big role is that they will end up with the wrong team, and that's exactly what you're saying. And it's very important, but they do not realize it.
Yeah, if you think about, if machines are not building your product, most likely people probably are, or people are your client facing bridge. So whether that's sales or client services. So if you don't have the right people in those roles and the right people representing your company in those conversations, it's going to really hurt you as you think about your business goals and your revenue and the things that you're supposed to be thinking about as an entrepreneur. The people are driving all of those, are the underlying piece to all of that.
Yeah. And so exactly what you said, what if they leave it too late? I mean, lots of times the focus on a startup is on building the business. So and I speak from a technology perspective, because even though One Circle is niche HR, but we are eventually a technology business. And our main focus most of the time is to optimize our technology platform, get feedback from our users, ensure that we are doing all of the updates that are required in order to basically respond to the needs of the clients and the consultants that are using our platform. Now we're lucky because we're a small team of friends and we work very well together. We as well leverage on contractors, so we basically so we practice what we preach, right? But then again, even with our HR background, we don't think of it as a priority to we don't think about the culture of the business, etc. So it's always comes somewhere down the line, but the maturity of the company is more around business revenue growth, etc. So what happens if you really leave this too late as a startup?
It's interesting. One of two things I've seen happen with the different companies that I've worked for. One is they recognize the reason why they know it's too late is because something went wrong and they have a toxic environment or they have toxic people and they don't know how to handle it. And so they're like, oh, we need HR because we need them to help us. So that's sort of one version. And then that's obviously a lot harder to come into and help right the ship because it's already at that level of toxicity or just unhealthiness. So that's sort of one version. And then the other version is they go, oh, I'm now at 50 people. I'm now at 100 people. There's some number in their head that they go, now I need X or now I need HR. And at that point, it actually starts to feel forced. And for folks that have been there for a really long time and have enjoyed the startup feel of it, they start to wonder, oh, are we now getting bigger? Are we now getting corporate? Because HR is here now. Yeah. At one company I worked for, everything was a signal that they were no longer the scrappy startup. Even the snacks we had in the kitchen, when those changed, it was, oh, now we're not a startup. And so, and that sends the wrong signal. So I think if it's part of the growing process from earlier on is product, finance, revenue and culture and people, it's part of the business from the beginning. And it's not a signal that something's wrong or something's changing. It's no, this is how we've always been. We care about our people and we want to make sure we've had that from the beginning.
Interesting. And so when is the right time to bring that HR person? So you said from the beginning. but what is the what
Yeah.
is the beginning for a startup when they get the investment?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
it's totally fair. And I think the other piece too, you made a great reference to One Circle in the stage you're at where, it's a group of people who already kind of know each other. It's a very niche group in the sense of like, you guys already have those connections, you know what you stand for, and you bring contractors in. As you start to grow that team where it's not just quote unquote, you guys, that's when it starts to evolve into, oh, we're now a team, we're now a company, we're now an organization, because we have more people involved that didn't know us from the beginning or weren't part of this journey from the beginning. And I think that's one of the moments where it's helpful to start to understand what are we looking for as we hire more people, or as we turn contractors into full-time people. What is it going to mean to now build out this team past the initial founders or that initial really small group?
Yeah.
And HR can be a lot of different things. It doesn't mean you have to hire a head of people or a head of HR or whatever you want to call it. It doesn't mean you could be leveraging your PEO more so for companies, especially here in the States. I'm not sure how it works elsewhere. There are organizations that can be sort of your HR person in the beginning to help with benefits and payroll. It could be that you've got a contractor. Maybe you just have someone who, you can work out the details, but is someone who you turn to when you need some help or to work on a certain project, or maybe, someone that you kind of call and say, hey, we're going through this thing. Can you help me? So those may be different ways that you start to incorporate HR. Depending on how much you're hiring, maybe you just have a coordinator to help, and it's a more junior person just to help with like the daily tasks, and they have someone that they can turn to. So there's a lot of different ways that you can look at it, especially when you're in the beginning and maybe you don't have, no one has cash just lying around. And so I know people want to be thoughtful with how they use their funds. So it can be on a part-time basis, a contract basis. It's more about just making sure you've got that thought leader and the person to help you through the journey in whatever way that looks right for you.
Yeah, that's true. And leverage contractors, as you said, and freelancers.
Yes.
So right now with open talent markets and platforms like One Circle. So One Circle is niche HR. We do have actually a vertical of consultants who are experienced in HR for startups.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'll be able to basically get a senior consultant who will be able to help you and work on your project, but at a very fair market price and without the long-term commitment of hiring that person. Because you can't afford it as a startup to hire senior people, but it's just the beauty of it that you are able to engage with those people virtually over platforms and at a fair price that you can actually afford.
Yeah.
So this brings me to my other question. So as a startup, what are the major things that I need to take care of from a people perspective at the beginning? And how can I start to think about it from a project perspective? So when we speak, for example, about culture, if I know this is important for me, and I know there's a freelance platform like One Circle or any other platform, and I'm convinced that I can leverage on those professionals, how am I, because as a CEO or a founder or a group of founders, we don't know what to do.
Yeah, no, it's a great question. And I think some of the main pillars at an earlier stage should be thinking about recruiting. So whether that is helping decide when you need certain roles and when they should be full-time and when they can be contractors, when you need managers. So sort of the org design of when you need certain roles, and then how are you going to find those roles? And whether that is actually creating some interview guides for folks, whether that is doing some interview training for those that are going to be interviewing, coming up with some of the questions. There's a lot of different ways that can play out, but thinking about, okay, I'm actually going to start building my team. How do I need to go about doing that? And then I think the other piece of it is creating your values. And so for me, values are something that you should be using throughout your organization. You're going to use them in hiring. You're going to think about it from a feedback and development standpoint. You're going to use it for recognition. And it really is, how do you communicate? How do you make decisions? It's so much more than just words on a wall. And so I think knowing what your values are, and by the way, they're going to evolve. So, do it now and then you can do it again in a few years. But creating those values, I think, is another really key project because it becomes a common language in how you talk about your culture. Otherwise, you can very easily slip into, oh, well, we're fun. We have a ping pong table and we have this and we have that. That's actually not your culture. Those are just perks that you offer folks.
Yeah, that's true. Those ping pong tables, they fool a lot of people, yeah?
Yes. Yeah. And so
So
I think I was
you
just
go
saying real
ahead.
quickly. So I think if you have those two things, then you can think about, should I be doing an engagement survey? Should I be thinking about retention plans and development plans for people? That's probably sort of the next step, depending on the design of your organization and what team members you have on board.
Yeah, I also think about the objectivity that an HR person, whether a full-timer or whether a contractor, brings into the whole situation, because the startup team and the founding team are so motivated, and they're so engaged, and they're pushing, and they are used to working hard. So because they're motivated by the results that they're getting, and they bought into the vision.
Mm-hmm.
However, when they start hiring people and growing the team, it's difficult for them as founding team to put themselves in the other's shoes.
Yes.
So most of the time, and I've seen that from some of our connections as well within our network, they also push the new hires that they're bringing over because they expect the same level of commitment and effort from them as they are
Yes.
putting in, and that's even before they get them to buy into the vision, into the culture, to feel that they're part of the team.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas bringing in that the HR perspective is really important at this stage.
Yeah. I think it's also helpful too, because it helps. Sometimes founders are so close to everything because it's been their baby for so long
Yeah.
that they forget that other folks haven't been on the same journey, or are not in their head and don't know everything that they know. And even as a company grows, even to 25 or, whatever rough number you want to use, people are doing work that are more in the weeds than the founders need to worry about. And so you start to see some of those gaps, which is all healthy and which is all good, but sometimes it's hard to recognize those changes in that evolution. And it's really interesting. I think if you talk to some founders and CEOs, they worry that HR is too for the people and, a little fluffy, and you're just going to want people to be happy. And if you talk to team members, some of them still worry that HR is too much for the business and you're going to protect the company. And I always tell people, I am dead in the middle. I want this company to be successful, and I'm going to help them reach their goals. But to do that, we need to make sure the team is right and in a good place and successful. And so I'm truly balancing both. And I think that speaks to your objectivity, is that I'm going to be objective with the team and not just give them anything they want, but I'm also going to give, the hard messaging to the business around, hey, we need to be thinking about this differently if we want this team to stay here.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And would you think that bringing in a full-time HR person, what's the recommended headcount? Some people say 60, 70, 80. What is that headcount when I know as a startup that I need a full-time HR person on board?
Yeah, I would say it's probably around 50 people. And the reason I say that is because of the complexity of the org that starts happening at that point. You start to have more managers and individual contributors. You're starting to have folks probably in different areas of the business, like you might be building up marketing or sales or whatever. So you're starting to have different kinds of departments, which means different skill sets and different personalities and different needs. So I feel like 50 is around the sort of magic point. And I think the question is it a leader or is it sort of a doer?
Yes.
I think it kind of depends on the company for sure. I tend to think it's probably someone like a generalist who can still be in the weeds, who can be a respectful, thoughtful person to help with like some employee relations issues as they come up, work with management and leadership to be, helpful to bridge some of those gaps, but I think you could still probably have the leader be a contractor or something like that, where you are using them as needed, or maybe as a mentor to that generalist.
Yes.
I'm speaking against my own experience. Order Group brought me in first at about 45 people, and then I hired someone as sort of the coordinator level. And I love being hands-on, and I have no problem sort of stretching the full gamut of an HR role. But I think some folks, it's probably better to bring the generalist first and have them someone they can turn to for the leadership piece.
Yeah, and interesting that you said bring in that person and then assign a mentor or a coach.
Yes.
And the beauty of it is that right now you'll be able to do that on online platforms like OneCircle. We do have a coaching vertical for HR consultants and for HR professionals. But as well, there's a lot of apps out there that only do coaching and mentoring, and then it's you don't need to put in those costs to get the quality of the work, and this is very important for everybody to know. Karen, really thank you for joining us. I really appreciate you sharing your expertise and your learnings and insights. Thank you, really. And I would like to thank everyone. Our next discussion will be about mindfulness at work for remote teams. And until next time. And in the meantime, you can tweet us on @OneCircleHR and follow us on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And see you next time. Thank you. Thanks a lot, Karen.
Thank you.